I think a lot of you are going to be very glad you watched this video because before I read this arc, I'd often run into that feeling of being behind in life, right? And I could never really shake it. But every time I find myself feeling that way, now all I have to do is remind myself of what I'm about to speak about. And I feel so at peace. You know, it's as though I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And it also has a lot of other very important reminders that we'll go through. So, final spoiler warning, I'm going to go into the context leading into this training arc. In Hinata's first year at high school, he and his team made it to the quarterfinals of the national tournament, where they played against Kamomedai and most notably Hoshiumi, a player with the same height disadvantage as Hinata, but unlike Hinata, he's a national level player. With the score at 13 all in the final set, we get an insane rally with multiple back and forths that ends with Hinata nailing a shot from the back row. But as Karasuno's smallest crow tries to get up, he finds himself unable to even stand. He has a high-grade fever. He's still desperate to stand on the court, but Takeda, for his own good, refuses to let him. Before rushing him to the hospital, he leaves Hinata with my favourite line in the series, and one that I'll come back to repeatedly in this video. This is still volleyball. It's perhaps the cruelest fate imaginable for the one player more than anyone in that tournament who appreciates the joy of simply standing on the court. At 5'5", in a sport where 6'3" is short, you are and always will be small. You won't be given the same chance as other players. It's a truth you have to accept. And so you, more than anyone, must always be prepared at a moment's notice. Be the one who's always at the front of the line when opportunity knocks. In tears and apologizing to his team, Hinata is removed from the arena. That door closed on him for far from the first time in his life. Kenma comes down to greet him with an iPad to watch the remainder of the game, and he can only watch on as, despite their best efforts, his new rival ends Karasuno's summer run. They're not as disheartened or frustrated as you'd expect. Of course they are a bit, but to have made it to the national quarterfinals was a huge accomplishment to them. There's the sense that they all know just how well they've done. Daichi freely admits he didn't feel like it was a close game, despite the scoreline, and everyone is fine with that. Sugawara comments on how no one apologized for anything, no one is upset or beating themselves up, and they enjoy their final meal as a team together without a single sad face amongst them. But Hinata couldn't even be there for the last celebration. Whilst no one blamed him whatsoever, he felt as though he'd let his team and himself down. A few years on, Hinata is in Brazil, beginning my favourite training arc and one of my favourite arcs of all time. He went there to train in beach volleyball, the reason being that ever since he saw that 2v2 drills at the previous training camp, he decided that he needed to learn how to do everything. And in beach volleyball, with just 2 players as opposed to the 6 indoor, you're forced to do exactly that. Now, Japan does have beaches, of course, but neither old Ukai or Nekomata knew anyone that would be able to give him the level of practice he needs. Washijo, however, does. But they're not local. They're not even in Japan. They're in Rio, on the other side of the world. Hinata accepts without a second's hesitation exactly as Takeda told him to. A year to prepare, then 2 to train. He won't let Kageyama ask him, "What have you been doing for the last 3 years?" a second time. Or at least, not in a negative way. And so he finds himself in Brazil. But his amazement and wonder very quickly fades. He meets his new place and his new roommate who doesn't want to talk to him at all. He plays his first match of beach volleyball and finds that his greatest weapon, his jumping power, has effectively been taken away from him. The whole thing clearly isn't going the way he'd hoped. He came here to catch up to professional level, and here he is flailing around on a beach. He's even losing to the people he's playing against. Not to mention how much time and energy too, of course, is being used up on his part-time job. Just what was he doing here? This wasn't the first time he'd been in a situation like this. He'd spent 3 years without a team to practice with, and he'd been the ball boy whilst everyone else improved right in front of him. And in both those cases, he'd had a moment where it hit him just how far behind he was, and how little progress he was making to change that. But this was on a far grander scale than either of those. Of course, he'd always taken the sport extremely seriously, but now he's on the other side of the planet living here. And now, whilst he's trying to make ends meet with his part-time job, his old teammate and rival Kageyama is already standing on the Olympic stage. But the thing is, and this is probably my favourite message in Haikyuu, both times, those seemingly awful situations ended up being extremely beneficial to him. The years he was denied simply being able to play the game etched into him a desire to hit every single ball that makes him a nightmare for blockers. The ball boy arc gave him the time and chance to develop his game sense in a way he simply never would have if he simply spent that time on the court, which then resulted in a beautiful receive against Inurazaki that he likely would have never made otherwise. At the time, there would have been no way to convince him that either of those situations were going to help him out in the long run, and yet they did. This would be no exception, as we do later on see the most beautiful, unexpected ways that it would not only benefit him, but allow him to do things that no one else was able to do. However, right now, he obviously doesn't know that, and simply has to have faith that it will. Much easier said than done. But ever since I've read Haikyuu, anytime I find myself feeling the same, I always remind myself of what happened after this arc. However, that's a long way off, and unfortunately his day only continues to get worse from there. In his job he finds himself lost, the customer yells at him for letting his food get cold, his wallet is stolen along with the cash he had in it, and that wallet was seemingly his last tie back to his family at home, a gift from his sister. His roommate continues to ignore him, and as he enters his room, it seems to hit him just how alone he is. He opens his phone, he sees his old teammates, and the homesickness completely overwhelms him. But this is still volleyball. No pursuit is ever just its good days. It's the days where it all seems hopeless, the days you wonder if it's even possible, the days that feel like this. And so Hinata realizes he doesn't have the time to feel this way for long, as after all, he who would climb the ladder must start at the bottom. Those were Takeda's words to him the last time he was in a situation like this, and ones that he has framed in his room. The ladder doesn't care how unfair the world's being, how frustrated you are, or how badly you want it. The ladder is simply a ladder. There are no shortcuts. But obviously the scary part is it never just looks like a ladder. It looks like setting, receiving, spiking, lifting weights, eating right, sleeping well. And so all these things he wants to do at a high level, he has to be willing to start off at the bottom, both on and off the court. And so he picks himself up, he cycles to the beach, and finds himself jumping into a match. No one on the court understands Japanese is yelling out, but he's clearly having a great time, despite this probably not being the most efficient practice in the world with the level of his opponents. However, whilst no one on the court understands him, when he turns around he sees Oikawa of all people, the player who gave him his first high school defeat. And yeah, I had the exact same reaction as Hinata here. However, the two have a lot in common. For one, neither received any attention from the Japanese team after high school, and so were forced to take a much more unconventional route. But secondly, and far more importantly, they both know that feeling of being born without. Although, it has to be said, Hinata far more so. Oikawa even seems to acknowledge this during his big moment at the end of Season 2, where he says, height may be the deal breaker, obviously being the one thing you simply cannot change. Now, obviously all the Oikawa stuff I've gone through in this video, so I won't repeat it all here, Instead, I'm going to jump ahead to after they've had their meal and catch up, and then return to the beach to play and match together. Despite some initial struggles, Oikawa quickly gets to grips with it. Hinata, being in much higher spirits, then proceeds to manage to get a conversation going with his roommate through their shared love of One Piece. He and Oikawa play a final game of beach volleyball together where he gives Hinata some advice I'll come back to later. But it's yet another instance of, if I hadn't gone through that seemingly awful situation, I would have never have experienced or learned that. It doesn't seem like he knew these matches were going to be here. I think he just went to the beach after the horror day he had because he felt like he had to do something. And so all these little things like his wallet being stolen, so by fate, caused him to be at the perfect spot at the perfect time. And I think it's a bit of advice in particular about bearing in mind how your opponents see you that really allow Hinata to reach the heights he does later. The pair end up winning the match and then parting ways, and we get a beautiful montage double spread of everything Hinata's going through that leads super well into the next big point. Of course, we see him practicing volleyball and lifting weights, but there's just as much focus on him sleeping, him eating, and even doing things like yoga. Of course, these do all help with the sport, but there's something far more important than that. As commented on by his mentor Kato, he says when he looks at Hinata, he can tell that Hinata recognizes something. I've really learned to accept myself. It's not a given for you to be okay, for everything to be alright, but he still trains, he practices, he disciplines himself, working until being okay has become a habit. I've spoken in a different video about how Haikyuu shows the importance of taking care of yourself first and then everything else second. But often when someone says taking care of yourself, our first reaction is, bubble baths and teas and lazy days. And I'm not saying that's wrong if it works for you, but for me it simply never did. For me, taking care of myself is exactly what Hinata's doing. Taking care of your body for exercise, eating well, and even things like yoga and stretches, which I admittedly probably don't do that last part as often as they should. And I really do believe all of these things should come before anything else. Hinata even says if he had to choose between food and training, he would choose the food. And yeah, of course, that shouldn't be an either or situation. If possible, you want to do both. But the taking care of yourself is not only the more important part, it will also help with whatever it is you're pursuing significantly. I've always found the hour or so I spend taking care of myself enables me to spend the next few hours working on whatever I need to far more efficiently. The overall work I get done is way higher. We find out later on that 2 of the top 3 hitters in Japan take this to an extreme. Well, Sakura takes it to a crazy extreme with, standing in the corner of the room with a mask on. But Ushiwaka also takes it very, very seriously. And no doubt the third also takes it very seriously too. And of course, as Hinata found out, neglecting it will eventually catch up to you. He wasn't sleeping or eating as much as he should have, and he inevitably paid the price for it. But none of this is to say that simply doing all that will always make you feel okay mentally or physically 100% of the time. That isn't a given either. And something about that was actually a huge relief for me, because if you're ever in a situation where you've done everything but still feel sad or ill or whatever, it can lead you to think that you're either doing something wrong or there's something wrong with you. Sometimes you are just going to feel down, and it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. Or black and guts, as Ukai puts it. It's just something that happens. And I also love this part here about don't try to surpass your limits, work to push them higher. Anyway, going back to Brazil, Hinata plays out his final beach volleyball match of the circuit, and it actually ends in defeat, but he isn't discouraged in the slightest, because he already knows everyone is defeated at some point. It's what you push towards to become tomorrow that matters. And so as Hinata's time in Brazil comes to a close, he continues to train, work, and take care of himself until those 2 years are finally up. It's time for him to say goodbye and return to Japan, where, as mentioned by Pedro, he's still a complete unknown, When he left to go to Brazil, he just wasn't at the level to go professional. But now, despite having such a rough start, the Ninja Shoujo is going to give trials a go. And we very suddenly see in the next chapter that not only did he succeed, but he's on an extremely good team, featuring the likes of Mia Atsumu and Bokuto, both considered absolute top players back in high school. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire match in this video, although I certainly will in a different one, but I do want to go through the parts I alluded to earlier, in particular, how his time in Brazil benefited him in ways that were completely unexpected to everyone. Across the other side of the net is equally packed with stars too, Kageyama and Ushiwaka, who are probably the two players Hinata found most intimidating, along with that player, Hoshiumi. Hinata's debut apparently has him replacing a player over a foot taller than him, and so Ninja Shoujo sneaks onto the court with no one knowing what they were in store for. The first play of the game has Hinata receiving Kageyama's serve beautifully, and not only that, he stays on his feet to be ready to attack. It's later noted by Kageyama that Hinata's balance is just ridiculous. It's always been great, but training on the sand, that training that seemed crazy to most, and I'm sure Hinata had plenty of doubts about whether it would ever pay off at times, that training turned Hinata into a monster. Atsumu sets it to Hinata in the back row, who, in the same way Hoshiumi did at the end of their last match, Hinata starts this match in the exact same way. I'm here. Again, I'm not going to go for everything, but a few other small bits. They make a point that Romero is a world-class player, one that Hinata actually grew up watching. And yet that bit of advice Hinata got from Oikawa, you have to bear in mind how they see you, enabled even Hinata to catch him off guard. In the 2v2 environment of beach volleyball, for one player to be able to cover the whole court, even Hinata's otherworldly speed and reflexes aren't enough. He had to come up with strategies that he would have never have thought of in 6v6 games, or he may have thought of, but would have never polished to the level he has now. Living up to his reputation as a ninja, he acts as though he's firmly planted in one position before moving to a new one the moment the attacker looks away, making Romero think a dink was an easy point before moving exactly there to catch him. Just like a ninja, it's as though he's showing up out of nowhere, and much to Daichi and Kageyama's shock, who distinctly remember the airhead who only loved spiking. I doubt without his chance encounter with Oikawa, he would have spent as much time as he did in Brazil trying to develop this kind of playstyle. And I also doubt that if he had gone straight into the pros, he would have either. Because I think playing in these slightly lower stakes games where he could try all sorts of new things was perfect for him. I can see how if he tried this in a pro game and it didn't work, it'd be kind of hard to justify to his team, you know, oh, I was intentionally standing miles away from where the ball was going. You know, trust me bro, it was intentional. But over here, where there isn't that same pressure, he was able to freely practice and refine his playstyle. That's not the only carryover either. There's float serves that looked insanely difficult to everyone else, but to Hinata it was just easier than the wind getting it. There's moments that go back to the ball boy arc over 5 years ago as well, like when Ushiwaka told him the thing on his mind when he receives is what he's doing for the next attack. Which, whilst I'm sure he was already implementing it, it kind of made me realise that when I look at my own life as well, sometimes things take years for you to see and understand why and how they benefited you, and it can be the strangest things as well. You know, speaking of Ushiwaka, right at the very end of the game, Hinata faces his immense pressure once again. Last time he was absolutely no match for those spikes, but he's practiced for this, and so he calms himself. Ushiwaka hits it, and Hinata stops it. He was perfectly positioned, but as Tanaka said, he didn't just happen to get it dead on, nor did he happen to make a perfect pass of it. It was the culmination of everything he'd been through. Everything he'd been working on this entire time, it was all still volleyball. In chapter 2, when Kageyama told him he wasted the last 3 years, he was angry and said it wasn't worthless. Although he really doubted that was true. But 2 chapters from the end of the series, he can say with certainty that it wasn't. Everything led him to this moment. Not one thing was worthless. Even that little balance drill he did using his feet in Brazil came in useful in the final rally to give Hinata the win over Kageyama. And wow, it's just such a beautiful arc. You know, in 7 chapters there's so many little parts that connect to another 395, you know, both before and after. So Saiko's line about how there are some flowers you only see when you take detours, Ukai's little reminders to always eat a proper meal, the way he made his team realize that you could try and go too fast to the point where it slows you down. But more than anything, this arc always reminds me that no matter how bad things may be right now, years from now, I'll see how it all connected to whatever brilliant place I'm in. If you liked the video and want to help the channel out, sharing this video with someone you think will enjoy it is the best way to do so. A huge thank you to Lindy Rain and Speak Fantastic for joining the list of supporters, and I'll see you all again soon for the next video.